Hello everyone, it's me again. Today without the camera, since I just need to buy a new one. The old one broke. But we're back to our ECS project, where we'll continue to work uh, on the combat system. Hello Bal, it's nice to see you there, man. Um, so yeah. Let's quickly recap what has been. Do you hear me? Because YouTube is complaining about the audio. I don't know. Anyway, we will continue to work on the combat system. So at the last stream, the only thing that we actually did was creating a reference system for hybrid ECS, which is working and is directly integrated with the Unity editor. So for example, we have the character hand. Okay, if you can hear me, that's good. Thank you, Bartek. We have a component called character hand, and we have a property called held object ref, which is just a shortcut for reference, of the type hybrid entity ref. And because it's not of the type of the entity, I just made a little magic to work with the Unity editor. So currently, I can just drag, as I was using the game objects, I can just drag and assign. And it's assigning the entity that's inside of has been created with the hybrid entity script. So it's just the same workflow as we're doing with the game objects, but we're doing all of the stuff in ECS, which is our primary target. All right. So the next issue that I will be trying to solve is collision detection, or how to do it in ECS, or how to pass this data to ECS. As we'll be using just components from the game object world, I'd say, and we would need to pass the information about some collisions and our triggers to our ECS world. And I need to just figure it out. What's the best way to do it? How to process those collisions? How to report them to the ECS in order to create functions like applying damage on a collision with some character. So, all right, let's turn it off. And we have some kind of an object. It has a mesh collider. And usually in the game objects, when we would do it in the game object style, we would create some event handler for, I don't know, on collision trigger or collision, on collision, and do all the stuff we want inside of that event. But in ECS, we need to push all of the functionalities inside in the systems. So it would be great if we can just pass this data to the system. Now we need to figure out the best way to pass this data. And whether we want to do it in a generic way or just simply do it for every object, like weapon. But I think the generic way would be a better one. So maybe let's create a component that I would call physics trigger.cs, and it will be a hybrid component. and it will be a different one from what we have. I mean, it won't be just a pure data as we're having right here. It should also contain some events that we'd like to capture from the Unity itself. So maybe let's create a new folder right here to distinguish those components from our pure components that we have here. So let's call them bridge. So this will be kind of a bridge component. It will bridge between the Unity game object world and the ECS world. So it's a physics trigger. Alright. So let's see the documentation for the physics events in the Unity. So Unity on trigger. We don't want 2D, but we'll capture that one. Okay. On trigger, enter, trigger exit, on trigger stay. So these events are made for object-oriented programming. So they have variations for entering when something enters the trigger, or exits the trigger, or stays in trigger. What we would actually want to pass to ECS, because it will only use that one, is on trigger stay. But we won't do it with on trigger stay, I think. I think we'll just use on trigger enter and on trigger exit. Yeah. So we also have the on collision enter and on collision exit. Are there any other? Collision. Just variations for 2D. On controller. Collider hit is called when the controller hits a collider while performing a move. I think this is for character controller, isn't it? Touch rigid body. Yeah, it's most probably for the character controller, so we're not interested in that. On particle collision, it's called when a particle hits a collider. Alright. You can do AAB manually with job system. Yeah, but I mean, first of all, I'm not using a job system at all, because for now I'm just coding the gameplay inside of ECS. And I'm doing it in a hybrid way, so I can't really use jobs, as my components are simply mono behaviors, but I'm using them as components on the entity. Hopefully waiting for Unity to complete all of the, most of the features, just to convert them to the pure ECS, and then I hope to just rewrite all of this code for pure ECS and use jobs so it can be optimized. But for right now, I'm just going with hybrid, and I can't use jobs at all. There is no jobs in the hybrid approach. I mean, there could be a jobs approach for things like if you have some pure data, of course, then you can do jobs. But mostly in my gameplay code, I don't think there's any reason to use jobs right now. I mean, I could use jobs for optimize things like copying the, maybe player movement direction here. So I have a player input, and I want to just pass the data from player input to the character movement. There I could use jobs, I think, because I'm just manipulating on some pure data. But I'm not sure whether model behaviors are compatible with the jobs. I don't want to create any more issues. I just want to learn by myself how to create a gameplay in ECS. So don't use events and object-oriented approach, just use systems and components. So Bruteful, why you decided to use hybrid? The reason is very simple. Right now, pure ECS approach doesn't have much features. So it has some basic render stuff, but for example, you can do a proper 2D with that. The next thing is animations. I've heard that they are doing some new package for animations in pure ECS, but if it's existing, it's most probably very experimental. So I just want to learn how to create a gameplay code in ECS, which shouldn't differ much from pure ECS gameplay code, except for the jobs. But the jobs is like, first you have to learn how to actually write an ECS gameplay code, and later on you would need to learn how to optimize your code with jobs, because jobs are only for optimization. You can write anything without the jobs, and later on convert to jobs to achieve a better performance. So I'm just using it because I want to learn it step by step and don't fall into some issues with not having simple features like animation and doing it manually or something. Okay, so I have a physics trigger, and I think I'll just create I would like to pass this data to some components with the to some entities with some component. Physics trigger. I wonder where should this information be passed, to the entity that enters the trigger or to the trigger itself? I think to the trigger itself it would be better. I get it, makes sense. I'm learning it myself, but I started pure. Yeah, I mean, if you would like to create some simple game, you can go with pure. But here I would like to create some 3D action game with some combat mechanics. And I think by the time I finish this project, at least to the scope I want, the pure ECS would be advanced to the level that I think I would be able to convert it to the pure ECS. So we'll see. Let's look back at this documentation. So on trigger enter and on trigger exit. Physics trigger. So maybe we'll do it in a way that whenever something enters our trigger, it is added to the list of entities inside of this trigger. But rigid body and colors are available for hybrid, right? Yep, but only for 3D. There are no 2D rigid bodies and colliders, as I remember. And for example, there are no particle systems, and I don't want to create my particle systems for the pure ECS. I just want to create a gameplay code and not be blocked by things like that. Okay, physics trigger. So here we would store some array. You store array, or it would be better to store a list? I know it's probably not the best way for the performance to do it with the list, but let's go with that for now, at least. So hybrid entity ref. 100 triggers. No triggers. Let's just name it entities. Okay. And now we need to keep track of those entities. So let's use this oh my god, the VS Code is not on collision. No suggestions for Unity. Maybe I need to install some plugin. Yeah, I think I need. So there's a debugger and there's a Unity tools. What's that? It's unofficial. It's not affiliated. Debugger. Okay, so they give you that. Is it only a debugger, or it's adding some new things? Exceptions, command ID. No, it's only giving the debugger. Let's try to search for Unity again. Unity tools. Alright. I'll pick that one. Oh, it's installing the Unity debugger. Contributions, open docs, settings. Okay, it's working right now. On collision, no. So maybe snippets? No, snippets won't work. Oh, there's a dot snippets. Yeah, but it's mainly for jobs, I think. No, I don't want it. Okay, let's do it manually. On trigger enter. And on trigger enter. Collider involved in collision. Alright. Collider. So using Unity engine. I was using JetBrains Rider, but I decided to use VS Code since I want one single IDE for every code I write. So it became, I was using Rider, but it became an issue for me when I wanted to write some TypeScript code or Ruby code, and I'm working on some project that is using a C# TypeScript, Ruby, and a little bit of C. And I was switching between a Sublime and JetBrains Rider as issued for me to have all of the same shortcuts between those editors. It was kind of annoying for me. So then I made my move to use a single editor, which for the first time I picked the Sublime. But after some time I realized that Sublime isn't perfect. I mean, it's not a standard. It's not used by so many people to create up-to-date extensions, and it turns out that VS Code is the one that people care about and create major language extensions for it. So if you use VS Code, you can be sure that if a new language pops up, you'll be good to use that in VS Code. VS Code for Unity is like writing HTML in Notepad in primary school. Well, I don't think so. I'm using the OmniSharp. I'm using the C# extension, which under the hood is using the OmniSharp language server, which is kind of a good. I mean, it just serves the basic purpose. So when I type dot, it displays all of the properties and methods of the object. So that's fine for me. That's all I need actually. But if someone writes only C# code, I think Rider is a good IDE. It's not that bad. I mean, it's good. I was using it for a long time. All right. And by the way, I'm not using, oh, here I'm using the Visual Studio Code, but in work, when I work on Linux, I use VS Codium. So it's an open source version of VS Code without any Microsoft branding and telemetry. On trigger enter, can it be null? Can I be sure that the collider is not null? Because sometimes Unity is messing a lot of things up. Can be sure of everything. I don't know, collider. Let's assume it's not null. So we want a reference to. We want a hybrid entity. So collider. Yeah, component. Hybrid entity. And if it's here, we are on trigger enter. Off top. Did you hear about Santa had drama in VS Code? What? What's that? I haven't heard about that. Santa had drama. Let me check that. Microsoft removes Christmas hat from MeIT. What? Santa had on VS Code inside. Weird stuff. But I mean, it's weird when we are talking about it right now, but it's pretty common for open source communities. I mean, there's a lot of dramas out there, like the one with Python package managers. It was also very, very interesting, I'd say. So open source communities tends to have dramas about weird things. Let me rethink one thing, because here we have a hybrid entity-ref. When we're doing it like that, so we can support viewing it in the editor. So yeah, everywhere in the component, we'd like to, when we want to reference an entity, we need to use this hybrid entity-ref, so not just entity directly. All right. Can it be null? I mean, can be a null reference. Most probably it can. But perfectly it would be good if then I don't want to mess up the things that we did previously. Let me check one thing. It's Unity serialize null label. Something like serial label that allows null. Task class. Doesn't support null. There's a small word. I don't know. But the entity itself has the field null. So no, we will do it just like that. And assume that every of those entities here, entity references, are not null. So we are in kind of a bridge world. We're trying to bridge two worlds together, and hybrid entity, let's get entity by calling hybrid entity. Have entities, yes, we don't want to duplicate ourselves. Contains entity, and we simply return, otherwise we add it. Entities, add entity, and on trigger exit, am I right? On trigger exit, yep. On trigger exit, collider, we do basically the same stuff, but here we just remove this entity from the list. Physics trigger. Okay. And we can do physics collider, same way as trigger. Physics collider, and we just want to use the on collision enter and on collision exit. There's a collision data, and we want to access the game object. Okay, so let's rename it. Trigger to collision and collision here. We can do get component, can we? We can. There's a bunch of things here. Get contact and contacts. I don't think we need to use that right now. I don't think we'll ever use this physics controller right now. Let's just do it. And later on, if we need more data, then we'll expand it. Right now it will work the same as the physics trigger. So collision and game object. Yep, okay. So we're bridging the collisions into the ECS world. Okay. And maybe let's try to, let's show in the editor actually, so we can just directly debug it without creating any system. So let's add to this, maybe to both of the weapons, the physics trigger. No, it's not showing the list. Oh, because it's read-only. Can I make the so it's entities. Can I make the property of the mono behavior to not be serialized but displayed in the editor? Read only, I don't know. Let's see. Mono behavior display read only. I don't know. This is the and all answer. That's nice. Read only drawer. Okay, so need to use a property drawer. Read only attributes. There's something already here. Read only, let's mark a member of a struct used in a job as read only. That's for the jobs. It's not what we want. Maybe here? I don't know. Add the draw default read only. Can chase. Begin disabled group. Non-serialized, but will it appear in the non-serialized? System not serialized. Will it actually appear in the editor? I don't believe it will. I would like it to appear. It's not appearing here. Physics trigger. Well, I have an idea, just temporarily to make sure this list is clear when we let's do it like that and let it serialize it and leave a to-do to get back to it later, and maybe just do it with this property drawer. So let's make it to the show entities in inspector and make it read only and non-serialized. All right. So this way I can just check what's going on in the editor, which I like to do. Okay. Is it triggering something? It's not. So it's something is not working. Let's try to put the sword inside. Object reference not a set to an instance of an object. What's the problem? Okay, our property entity ref drawer is not working with something. So we're getting the hybrid entity ref. Oh, because it's only custom drawer is fileable solution in this case. Yep. I just don't want to waste my time right now for implementing this custom drawer. So I just decided to skip it, but maybe later. Hybrid entity ref field info. So in our custom property drawer for hybrid entity ref, we are assuming that this structure is only used for as a property of some hybrid component, not that it's used as in some array or collection. So this is an issue. Can we get like property as name or fixed buffer size array element type is array. So yeah, we want to like, but if it's array, can we access the index? Index, a new value index. Get array element at the index. I would just like to have an index of this property we're displaying. Content property, and value index, fixed buffer size. The property is head. Hide flags not editable. Where can I find that? Object is not editable in the inspect. but it's only for the game object, I believe, this hide flag. And it's set in runtime, so I don't know. Seems very tricky, but it can. I think I'll just leave it as it is right now, and later on come up with this custom property drawer. But thanks for sending that. The property serialized object. No. Get type, get field. So here we have the array, and I mean we could have here an array, and we need to check at which index we have our property. So maybe let's check that int serialized, search like that. Yeah, working for arrays, just a serialized property. My int array, find property. It's weird. Serialized property type. Sure, you can use flags for materials, but for components you should be able, but not sure. Yeah, but I would need to set it, for example, in, I don't know, when the component is added to the game object in editor, so there's a function called onReset, and I'm not sure how exactly it's working. I just don't want to break anything with this flag. Send array element at index. But come on, give me an index. So maybe this property is not an index, it's just source property get index. Excellence in an array for find property speed. Or maybe, maybe we can do it like serialized object this property belongs to. Let's try to debug this property name. And can we access the parent or array element type tooltip serialized object, which is simply I don't know. Let's debug log this property name. See what's wrong with that. I wonder what it's not working with this. But well, I don't know. Okay, so it's data. It's telling me that here, most probably here. So let's see if it changes. So there's the size changes, but the property is not drawn. So object reference not set to an object, and we have this property name named as data. serialized object. Maybe let's see what target object is. I would like to, because it works if it's just property of the component, but right now I'm trying to access it if it's listed as an array. So it's weapon physics trigger. Weapon physics trigger. So if it's weapons physics trigger, weapons physics trigger. So the target object is okay, but the property name is kind of a wrong. So do you have any other options? Display name, no. The table is array. Get maybe something here. Get end property. Choose this one that defines the end range of this property. No. Next, visible object reference prefab property type. Let's try to see what serialized object is, maybe. Its name? No. Unity serialized object. Let's try to find it like Unity serialized property get value. This is what I need. And this is what I'm doing. Oh, there's a property path. That's cool. So I just need to switch this to from name to property path and get it from target object class. Target object. So yeah, I'm getting component from target object, getting the type, and getting the field. And hopefully it will work. Yeah, or maybe not. And something else is breaking. Get value, but where? On this line. And it's weird because it's appearing. Oh, it appeared because I just most probably turned it on. Let's debug this property path. Maybe search here for array. Currently it doesn't work with array, but it shouldn't be problems to extend it. Just I didn't need that feature so much. If you check the editor helper, that's because you're using list. Yeah, sure. But here there's some editor helper class. The method get target object of property and set target object of property are effectively the same as return, but accounting for array lists. That's what I need. Okay, so people are reporting it's working, so let's grab that one. Oh, it has some dependencies, so I need to let's just copy that class, editor helper. I love those names. Editor helper, editor utilities. gameplay utilities. So many helpers and utilities just everywhere. It's a long class. Don't tell me it's using something from here. And it's using, most probably it's using type util. My god. Ah, I don't want to refactor it to just get this one method. But I think we'll need to, if we want to, for it to work. So let's start from what we want. So property value, no. Get property value. Was that he mentioned the name? I don't need that anymore. To get target object of property. Okay, so using this property path, replace array data with this one, okay. Get value implementation. It's not so bad, doesn't have any other dependencies. Well, let me fix the code since we broke it. Okay. Open the ing so it can catch up with here. Okay. And we need that. So go to definition. So we're using this object, and we're using the second implementation too. It's using the first, some simple stuff. So if I'm correct, we only need those three functions: get value imp and get value and it will work. So let's delete all of other functions, or maybe leave this set target, as if it doesn't have any complicated, yeah, it has dynamic util, so we don't want it. Oh, what's happening? Set enum value. Maybe we'll just copy and cut it, paste it here, and take it. So if we would use that in other place, we'll just place them in some more global scope. But right now, I just want to use it here. It's a little hack, I believe. So static methods and binding flags, they are from system reflection. And delete that. So I want to get target object of property. And it should work. Okay, so it didn't break our previous code, but will it work with arrays? Entities. Oh, it's working. Let's just credit this author of this code. So he's a And that's just Lord of Duct. Okay. Okay. So we're properly displaying the trigger, the entities that are currently inside of our trigger. So if we move this word inside the character, it is linked to our entity. Ideally, but object ref is empty. Yeah, sure, but it's because of the... Right now, it's not storing the... It's not storing the entity ref. It's... I mean, it's... In this situation, it's storing the entity ref, while in this situation, we're storing the hybrid entity ref. And, well, actually, I wanted to change that. So... Maybe let's do it. And if we do it, I think that actually we can, or maybe we can't, or maybe, no, we can't. So this is the, because, yeah, we can work on that. So instead of trying to get, I mean, here we're doing great, but the object field would need to display it manually. And then we would need this set target target object of property. I mean, let's keep it as it is right now. It's mainly for setting up things in the editor. So when I would like to create some level that has connection between entities, then I'm using this this UI. But in runtime, I won't be much focused on that. So I don't need a reference for the hybrid entity inside of the inspector. It's a reference to the player entity, but it's not catching up the hybrid entity component. Which is not breaking our runtime code, it's just bringing our display here. I can work on that later to try to search a hybrid entity that is attached to this entity. But I mean, it's not what I want to focus right now. Let's just leave it as it is. It's good that it's working. So the trigger is adding the entity to the list whenever it collides. I wonder why this one is not working. I mean, maybe, oh, the collider is too small. What if we just increase it, just to make sure that this red weapon is working too? So yeah, it's catching up with the reference to our entity. So that's great. I'm not sure about this name, to be honest. It's like entities, but what entities? This is a physics trigger. On trigger enter. I mean, this trigger word is just like not a perfect one. Collider. What happens if an object enters the trigger? Does it collide or should it be triggered? I'm just missing some kind of a sentence out here to call this property entities in more proper way. On trigger enter, on trigger exit. Collided entities, but it's not collision, it's trigger. So it shouldn't have to do anything with collisions. It's just triggering stuff. Maybe a trigger is bad name. And maybe it's good. Physics trigger. Active contacts. Well, active contacts not, but maybe contacted entities. On trigger enter. This contact word is interesting, but contacted and entities, contact entities. Contact makes sense, but contact entities, I don't feel that. But it's a good way. I mean, good direction with this contact word. Just contacts like in collision get contact. Yeah, maybe. But I would like to use this contact word here. So maybe contact entities ref. Do I need to use this ref word everywhere? Entities in contact, sure. Entities. Trigger entities? Because as they enter the trigger, they become entities in trigger, which can be a shortcut for trigger entities. Because contact is like you have a physics when you think about it. So it's strictly connected to the collision collider. So maybe the trigger would be in fact a better name. So maybe just trigger entities. Yeah, I think that will be good. And one thing to fix, held object, instead of typing it like held object, held entity. We'll call it like that. Because I don't want to use this ref. Yeah, but as long as they are in the trigger, they are also in contact with each other. But what if there's only one? You mean that they are in contact with each other, the trigger and the entity, right? Would you call it a contact? It's like more. Contact is when both of kind of an abstract things, let's call them objects, know about it, I think. So they have a contact. When you're using triggers, it's more like only the trigger, I think, should know that there's something inside of him. Well, think let's keep it that way. Trigger entities. I'll think about this name later. I think let's just so when we have a physics collider, it could be a collision entities. So it's collider, physics collision, no, physics collider. That's good. And physics trigger entities. Let's keep it that way, I think. And later on we'll change it when some better name comes to our mind. And here, instead of held object, it will be an held entity. Since I wouldn't like to type ref for every reference that we store, and as we should store only entities, we can name it just the property with the entity name. I called it object, but it can be entity, so why call it object? So yeah, here let's save it. Physics collider, physics trigger. Okay. So it should be working. Okay, so let's write a component that would deal damage to entities inside of the trigger. I mean, it would store data about dealing that damage. So it's a physics collider, physics trigger. We have here some components. How would we name it? Deal damage. Damage on trigger. Maybe something like that. Oh, maybe trigger damage. That's a perfect name. Trigger damage. Physics trigger damage. Character damage. So class physics trigger character damage. And I think about that, and it should actually deal damage in two modes. So first one would be like deal damage once, and the second one would be like deal damage per second, because in both cases we need to make it inside of the update function. It's not a callback. So for now, let's create physics trigger character damage once. So it would deal the damage to the character only once when it's enabled, but we won't have a callback for enable or disable, so we should do it like public list. We need to use the system collections generic, list of entity refs, dealt damage entities. So, and from hybrid entity, yeah, hybrid components. Okay, I'm back. So list hybrid dealt damage entities. Okay, and let's store the physics trigger character. Physics trigger. Huh. I'm not sure whether the name of this component is right. It's like physics trigger character damage once. What does it mean at all? Maybe like so here we have, let's try to catch up with the idea of components. So we have like character movement. It describes the movement, the character health, which describes the health of our character, the hand that allows us to hold something, character AI, and it should be more like deal damage component. Or maybe like damage once is physics trigger damage. So what this entity that has it would do, it would apply the damage on physics trigger once, only one time. So the component should be like physics trigger damage, and how to describe that it's telling only once. Physics trigger single damage, single character damage. Or maybe we'll do it in another way. So instead of attaching the deal damage for physics trigger, we would check if something is triggered inside of the weapon collider, inside some character attack system, and then there apply the damage instead of creating some kind of a generic component for dealing damage Yeah, I think that would be great because we would have more control over what we're doing. So we'll do it in character attack. So should perform our next available time. First of all, let's just create an input that would trigger the attack. So many triggers. Alright, let's bind it under the space. So player input, bool attack, move axis X, move axis Z, attack. And read player input system. Player input attack is input get button. Just forward is held down. Okay. Get button. Not button. I want get K code space. Okay. Character perform attack system. And here, or maybe first of all, character apply player movement direction. And here we would need apply player player attack. Maybe apply player, because we're reading here, and here we would like to apply player attack input system and rename it to apply player movement input system. Player input movement input system. Okay. And player, and we'll copy that one, paste it here, refresh the Unity, apply player attack input system, character attack, should perform is whether we hold the attack. So player input should attack. Okay. And character attack system. Character perform attack system. Should perform next available time. Okay. And we don't need that. So we don't want this logic. We'll rewrite it. Character attack, character statistics. In this system, let's just trigger the animation. So we don't need all of those things. We just need the character animation, I believe. Animate, there was like animate player system, animator. Okay, so here we'll do it on like we'll track the attacking duration. So we have here should perform, and we need is performing, performs time, start time. And by knowing that, we also know when the next attack should be available. So it should perform start time. Let's have here, or maybe not. Let's assume that attack takes 1 second for right now. So if let's create it, is attacking, is performing, it'll be like correct attack, and introduce here attack duration. Make it a const. Yes, we can. So time since last perform start would be like time elapsed time minus the correct attack start time, perform start time since last perform start. Okay, and it's attacking if we're still under the attack duration. So if it's attacking, we do return. We can't do anything about it here. If it's not attacking, then if we want to perform an attack, should perform then we set attack correct attack, perform start time to time elapsed time. And what's wrong? It's float and it's a double. Okay, so let's change it to double. Okay, and here we set the float, maybe not float. Set bool. Or maybe not bool. I mean, it would be perfect to store a position of animation that we would like to play. Let's see whether it's possible. Right now I'm just creating some transition out here, but speed right defaults. Oh, have I changed that? No. Can we like set the time to the current position of animation? It's recording. Set bool, set IK position. Most probably we need to get layer, add layer index, layer, get layer weights, set layer weight, no, get animator clip, keep animator, get current animator clip info. Layer index, let's say it's 1. Okay. Clip. Frame rate, average speed, apparent speed. Oh, I don't think we can set the time of the animation here. Which is bad, because that would be perfect. And we would have a perfect synchronization over the attack time and the animation. Not sure if you want to get scene or play scene. Play scene or play scene? Well, I want to have I want to access the frame that is currently played by the animator in certain node, and I would love to change it to certain frame to match the animation from the character attack system. So imagine that the attack lasts for about let's say 100 seconds, which is an imaginary number, but let's assume that the attack lasts for 100 seconds. And I would like to add the animator component, or start animating at the let's say half of that time, so it would be like 50 seconds. And I would like to animate player system just to match the animation to the current state of the character attack. It's like the most safe way to do it. Because in case of movement, we don't actually need to synchronize anything, as it's just showing that our character is moving. It's not like our gameplay depends on it. It's just visual stuff, but for the attacking, our gameplay depends on it, because if our character is in certain position, if his hand is in certain position, it affects the position of the weapon, which affects whether he hits the enemy or not. So I'd like to have a control over it. Let's try to find out where you can just int set animation frame of animator. Jump to a specific frame in an animator. That's what I want. Play your time index here. Play in fixed time. Animator controllable. Play in fixed time. When you specify a state name, the string used to generate hash, it should include the name, the parent layer. For example, you have a run state. In the base layer, the name is base layer.run. Okay. Layer index, if place the first state with the given state name. What? The layer index. If layer is -1, it displays the first state with the given state name or hash. So I should specify the layer twice? Why? Yeah, plain fixed time. That's what I'll use. But why should I specify the layer 2 times? State hash name, if state name hash 0, it changes the current state time. Okay, so let's try to do it. So it's an attack. layer. I think we should get it from animator get layer index attack. A float fixed time. Fixed time meaning it's between the time offset in seconds. Okay. In seconds. Alright, so if we need to get a character attack here. And can we actually save this value? And I have to use attack.attack. Just attack would be fine. Okay, thank you. Alright. Thanks, Bao. Character attack. I mean, should perform start time. Let's start here. It's attacking. And here double attack time. So if it's attacking, then so we're basically recalculating those things. Ideally we would split that into two components. So something that wants to use information about character attack only has access to its attacking and attack time, which are set by should perform and perform start time. So it can't access this. But never mind, let's just code it as it is right now. Using hashes for performance, yeah, sure, but I just want to check if it's working. If it's working, I mean, performance right now is like second thing I want to focus right now. But yeah, hashes would be better. So just to store a static, or maybe no, not static. We're not inside the game object. But can we? I think the hash functions are static ones. So yeah, we would need to hash it. But yeah, let's, for the testing purposes of this approach, I won't hash it. Character attack is attacking. So if it's attacking, we are not performing anything. I mean, we should set the attack time, which can be actually calculated. Attack time. This is basically this thing. And where string to hash is static. Okay. So we can use it just by placing the value here inside of the system static scope. Alright, attack duration. So if it's attacking, we're not allowed to perform again. And if it's attacking is false, we shouldn't even check this attack time. Which would be changing, by the way, but it shouldn't matter. Okay, so character attack is attacking. And character attack. No, we need this one. Okay. And as a fixed time, we'll be setting character attack time. What's wrong? From double to floats. Okay, we're back in floats. But if it's not attacking, We would like to create maybe transition to play. What is the normalized animator? Play method. Play a state. Hmm. So for transition into the attacking, we're not at all transitioning into attack, as we're just simply playing this animation, overriding the state in the attack layer. But when getting back, it would be good to have an animation. This is a simple one. How can we specify that we want to play some other field but have the transition animator? Playback, set trigger, reset trigger, play in fixed time. Get next animator clip. Oh, that's interesting. Crossfade creates a crossfade. The current state to any other state using normalized time and specify a state name. The string used to create. Okay. Okay, so it basically does the transition. Which is great. I would love that. Normalized transition time, the time of transition. But we would need to store the time that has elapsed after the attack has ended. Well, let's just keep it simple for right now. Play in fixed time, none. From the player, from this. Okay. Well, we should just delete this transition and all of those transitions, actually. Oh, it performed an attack because... See, it's working. But the animation is too short. I mean, it's not lasting 1 second. So maybe we should... I mean, just for right now, change it from the fixed time just to play. So we'll be setting the normalized time, which we know is between 0 and 1, and as well as the normalized value. Yep, it's working perfectly. So it's playing the whole animation right now. Okay. It's a weird animation, but it's working. Player, let's attach a weapon to him. Okay, it's not moving that bad. Why is animator window moving? Well, some sort of feature? I don't know. Oh, when I zoomed out, it's not moving. It's like from totally accurate background. Alright, it's working. That's the most important thing right now. Okay. So we need someone to attack. The enemy. Let's create one. Here he will stand. And our perfect material for marking everything that's different. Okay. And it won't be a player. It won't have a player animation. It will be named an enemy. It won't have a tag system, a different team, no movement, you're non-moving. Character hand, no. Character statistics, yeah. Movement, acceleration, speed, max movement, attack cooldown. Oh, we're not using those values right here. I mean, whatever. And max health points. Well, we're not using that as well. So let's assign a 12 health points. And for our player, a 1 attack damage. And modify this attack range, because we don't need this. And attack cooldown, milliseconds. As we also don't need this. Yep, with the red skin is even more like tap. What's tap? I know what's tap. Is it a... Oh, totally accurate battlegrounds. Oh, it's a shortcut. Okay. Didn't catch that one. Character perform attack. So he's performing his attack. And okay, so here, well, let's change this logic a bit. So if character isn't performing an attack and character attack should perform, perform start time. So, okay, and here we are sure that we're performing an attack. So we need a character hand. Character hand. We need our character hand. It stores an held entity. Let's assume that we can deal damage with any entity that has a physics trigger, or maybe weapon tag. So tag, when you're creating a component, I read this somewhere here or watched, I don't know, just learned. I learned how to create some functionality or name components that you would like to use only to mark that it should work in some way. So you create a component called tag. So in this case, I'm creating a weapon tag, and I will use this component to check whether the current held object by the player in the hand should deal the damage. So if it has the weapon tag, we are dealing the damage. So yeah, here we're performing a tag, and let's like character hand held entity value, and we need some component from that. So weapon tag would be entity manager. Can I access that one? Entity manager, yep. Get component object, which is a weapon tag. Get it from entity, from character hand, hold the entity body. And if character hand hold entity value equals to entity null, then we shouldn't use store damage in weapon component. Well, right now I'm doing it in a way that every character deals, I mean, weapon does not affect the damage. So I only store the attack damage inside of the character, just to keep it simple. So if the currently held object is null, I return it. I search for the weapon tag. If weapon tag is like null, we don't have that one, then I return as well. And then I search for physics trigger, character hand held entity, oh like that, physics trigger, and in character attack, store a list using Unity Engine system collections generic list of entity refs. Let's call it attacked entities. Attacked entities, and create it. Attacked entities. Okay, and I iterate for each for entity in physics triggered entities if character weapon character attacked entities contains the entity trigger entity, let's call it like that. If it contains, it means it has been tagged, so I continue the loop. And at the end of the loop, we'll need to add this trigger entity to the list. We need to look for. Oh, we would need to our character enemies. So we need the character team as well as the character health components. But to distinguish that, What? Transform? Oh, yeah, okay. No, we don't need transform here. Tag duration, tag time, character hand, weapon tag. That's good. Let's call it weapon physics trigger. And let's call it other entity. And here other character health. Again, using that one. So it's a entity manager get character health. Get character health from other entity. And what's wrong? Oh, we need to like get value, right? And as well here other character team. So we need a team here, character team, and we need team of our character that is attacking. Character team. So before we get health, we can actually check whether we are enemies. So only get character team and do it like our character enemies, which is our helper function, which we pass the character team. Let's do it like that. Character team and other character team. So if there are not any enemies, and we continue. Here we are sure there are enemies. Other character health points, and we need our character statistics to figure out how much damage we want to deal. So character statistics. And we simply deal the damage. Attack damage. Well, I think it should work. Let's see. Oh, it won't. Oh, okay, it will attack and apply the damage for the first character, but it won't apply damage for the further characters. Is because we are not just setting the list of character attacked entities clear. Yep, and it should work right now. Too much operation for a single system. Yeah, sure. I'm just rushing it. I mean, just trying to put this functionality, and later on, of course, it would need a refactor for splitting it into some other systems or functions like that. Well, this won't be used anymore. It's still used. Oh, follow. So yeah, I would need to split it to some other operations, I mean functions or systems. It's just right now for checking whether this will work at all. Type weapon tag has not been added to entity. What? So I can't add weapon tag. Okay. I'm trying to get it here. Where's that? Correct to perform attack system. Weapon tag. So it's failing? So it's not returning null. So can we like has component? Yeah, we can. So let's do it. So if entity manager has component, when the entity has component, or better say it hasn't got a component weapon tag, then we are returning. And tag tags to weapons for enemies. Yeah, I didn't add, but and that's why it failed. But it turns out that before you do a entity manager get component object, you need to be sure that it's present on this entity. So it's not working like giving you an option to return null, which is good, but also it would be also annoying. So for example here I would need to do has component physics trigger, which I don't want to do right now. I mean, I would be I'm sure that it will be present, but in the future it will be required to add this protection. So it won't work, but it won't spawn any errors. By the way, let's check if our weapon is catching up with the we're using. Oh, it is. Some entity is appearing out here when we are attacking. It's a good sign. Let's add the weapon tag. And observe the enemy health. And add. Oh, we have an attack damage. Well, what happened? I mean, it's subtracted. It's subtracting the health, but when it's not randomly collision, I mean, when the random collision occurred at the beginning, it dealt the damage. Yeah, maybe add extension to data measure. Good idea. Get component object or null. Yeah, that would work fine. So are we dealing damage? Yeah, we are. That's weird. So why is that? Correct attack. So let's observe it's attacking. Now right now it's false. So we shouldn't deal any damage at all. Okay, I know why. Messed up with the logic here. So, as I've said previously, it would be ideally to split these data into two components. So maybe like here, character attack would store only data about the attack itself. So when we are attacking, when we are in the process of attacking, we store some data about this attacking process, and we should move this perform started time or perform start time, or it should perform to some like character attack controller, which intends to like control the attacking of the character. Just to split the gameplay logic through gameplay logic and the input. And by saying input, I don't mean the input from player, I also mean the input from the AI. So it shouldn't deal the damage when the collision occurs. Yeah, it's working. And when I hit, it applies 1 damage. let me see how the character attacked enemies. Okay, so when we are starting the performance attack, it's calling this attacked entities array. So yeah, it's working. I mean, it's not that perfect, but it's something at least. So the next step would be to refactor it to some more cleaner code. Maybe just refactor all of our systems, because when I thought about this syntax entities for each type here, the components, and later on use them as variables, it's not perfect. It's not how I would like to write this code. So yeah, that's the subject for change. This character attack split of data. So I would like to have these two variables in separate component from those variables out here. But overall, it's not that bad. I mean, I slowly start to get what this ECS is all about. So yeah, that would be all for today, I think. Let's make sure it's saved. So the next stream, polishing and just a bit of refactoring. Yeah, if I would finish that, then maybe what can I do next? Just extend it a bit. So yeah, the next stream would be about polishing the combat system and extending it with features like the dynamic attack speed, so you can control it from character statistics. Yep, that would be it. And by the way, the beauty thing is with this approach of directly animating the attack is that I don't need to create some kind of a parameter here to say like attack speed and hope it synchronizes with the gameplay. It's just like right now the animation of attacking directly comes from the gameplay values. So I get like attack speed is implemented on this side of the on the gameplay. I don't need to repeat myself by implementing or handling it in the animator. Alright, so thanks everybody for watching, and thanks everybody who will watch this as the replay on the channel. I think we'll slowly getting to the point where I would like to create some small summary. So summary video. I would need to learn how to edit the videos and get them from YouTube. So yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye.